Welcome everyone to the Menachem Begin Heritage Center. Some of you are faces that I'm used to seeing on a screen with the Zooms that I've been doing for a couple of years now. So it's great to see many of you in person. Those of you who are new to the center and to these English events, welcome especially, and if you'd like to join the mailing list and hear more about the English events that we have here, then please do drop me an email, paulg@begincentre.org.il. Okay, so those of you who know the types of topics that we cover will know that we're normally talking about issues around Israeli politics or society or the wider Middle East, or history, or of course specific moments related to Menachem Begin. Today we're talking about something which actually connects to many of those things. The story of Ethiopian Jewry is one which is very much a current Israeli political and societal issue. It's also something which I think should be important to. Now there's the reminder that I needed to tell everyone to switch off their phones, including me. So thank you very much. That was a helpful reminder. But this issue is something which I think touches many of us, both in Israel and outside Israel, those of us who care about and think about Am Israel and the Jewish people, and the sense of the idea of Jewish unity, and the fact that we have something which connects us, which transcends the occasional differences between Jews in various places, including in this country. And of course it's also very much related to Menachem Begin, who as Prime Minister was absolutely instrumental in bringing the issue of Ethiopian Jewry, the plight of Ethiopian Jewry, to the Israeli national consciousness. And though he was no longer Prime Minister, by the time the big influx of Ethiopian Jews started coming in the early 80s with Operation Moses, he was still very much connected to it, and I know from speaking to them, there's very, very, very few people who were still seeing Menachem Begin regularly when he was living kind of reclusively after his retirement. But those that did will tell you that one of the very, very few issues that he still was very much connected to and that he was constantly asking about was the question of Ethiopian Jews, which is testament to Begin's sense of love of the Jewish people in wherever they came from, and wherever they lived. And that's the whole story of the Aliyah of Ethiopian Jews. It was something that I think touched Begin particularly, and it's obviously our pleasure as the Begin Center to focus on it in this event this evening. So I'm delighted to have with us here this evening Elias Inbram, who is a qualified lawyer, a man who's been involved for several years now in social activism on Ethiopian community issues. He was originally born in a village in northern Ethiopia, not far from Aksum. He fled with his family to Sudan. We're going to hear about that. After 2 months of waiting in Sudan, his family immigrated to Israel in 1983 with the help of the Mossad. He's become involved in Israel advocacy, both in Israel and abroad, and is today a very prominent voice here in Israel for anti-racism, for equality and inclusion. So I want to invite Elias Inbram to join me to discuss his life and the issues today. Okay, so firstly, thank you very much for joining us all the way from Ashkelon. So I think let's start at the beginning. There's a song somewhere that says it's a very good place to start. Don't want to sing the sound of music. Can you just tell us something about your how did you get here? When you left this small village in Ethiopia and you went where initially?
First of all, thank you for Paul and Lily. Thank you for inviting me here. a very important place to our history. And secondly, except to Dr. Morgan, I'm very happy to see you after 2,000 years. I think all of you, I see you for the first time. You look a bit different, not like that time. We used to look like Bedouin, all of us, the Bnei Israel, you know. And today we look so different, and I guess the coming hundreds of years, through the integration, we will become to be similar a little bit more, and we need patience. To your question, how did we escape from the village in Ethiopia? First of all, we used to live in the northern of Ethiopia. Most of the Ethiopian Jews, they lived in Tigray region and Amhara region. Through the history, the Jews moved from place to place where they can work and survive, and where they can make money, or agriculture, and others, just to survive, and to pray every Shabbat next year in Jerusalem. It was just like a dream. And then when I was born, the chief Rabbi Ovadia Yosef make a halacha decision after big arguments and discussions between the rabbis in the international level, made the decisions that the Beta Israel community, they are full Jews, and they answer the question of law of return. And the problem was the Israeli politician now. The first step of the rabbinic level, we passed it, and now we are getting to political level. And the political level wasn't easy, a lot of delay. At the moment that Menachem Begin asked the chief Mossad, asked him to come to his office and told him, I see what the rabbis are saying. I want my brothers and sisters, I want you to bring them. At this moment, it was in 1977, I am like 4 years old, and my parents moved from the northern of Ethiopia to Addis Ababa in order to fly directly to Israel. And there, we got a problem. The problem was a political issue. That time was Mengistu Haile Mariam. He was a dictator. He was very close to the Arab countries, but he has some contact with Israel. Dictators, they don't let civilians to get out or easily. And my parents were, my father was arrested. They thought maybe he's trying to make revolution, or a lot of excuses. He was for 2 months, and we were like 3 or 4, I think we were 4 kids. My sister, mainly my 3 sisters. At the end of the day, we were lucky. My father released from the jail, and we made a decision to go back to the north of Ethiopia because my grandparents still were living in the village. They said, come back here, let's go to Sudan. There is no choice to go out from Ethiopia by flight. And then we started the journey to Sudan. It wasn't easy at all. You can imagine, with horses and donkeys, no motorcycle or WhatsApp to let everybody, hey guys, we are moving. You know, any information you deliver, it takes sometimes months. So you need to wait with a lot of patience. But you can imagine hundreds of people making the journey, walking. They had horses, donkeys, some food, some clothes. They left their stuff, or they gave it to the neighbors. If they could sell it, they sold it to other people to make some money. And moving to where? To Jerusalem. And I remember as a child, while we are walking, you know, we got thirsty on the way. We have a lot of trouble. I said at some point, I said, where is Jerusalem? I mean, where are we going? We are Ethiopian. We should stay in Ethiopia. What's the problem? I was asking myself. No answer, but I said maybe Jerusalem is where the sun sets. So we are getting closer, but we never got to the sun. I remember also that when we crossed the border of Sudan, the Sudanese soldiers start to shoot with the guns and running after us. And at the end of the day, they didn't look after us. They were looking after our guides who was holding guns. So they took the gun from them. They told us you can continue. And we were fortunate also that the Sudanese, for refugees, they were okay. They didn't know where is our destiny. They knew that there are a lot of Ethiopian refugees coming to Ethiopia. So in this journey, we were undercover of refugee looking for a job. It's not easy in Ethiopia. And it was a secret to say what was our destiny. Mm-hmm. In Sudan, we waited for 2 years. And if you have a good connection, you can stay a few months. Because among the Jewish community, also you need some politics. Okay, the organizers who already have a contact with the Israeli Mossad. Like I said, Begin was involved, the Mossad were involved, and they have to start to rescue the Jews from Sudan. So we waited for 2 years. I remember I met someone, the first time I met, in Ethiopia as a child, you think that the world is flat and the sky is held by two walls, and you think that the whole world is only Ethiopians. And in Jerusalem, there are only Ethiopians, Jews only. Okay, Benjamin Netanyahu is Ethiopian, and you all guys are Ethiopians. And then I met someone who was talking to my father, explaining him how to get to Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, how to fly to Israel, giving him the documents, fake documents, to Europe. Okay, but he was so unique for me, this man. He has two eyes, nose like me, two hands, but his skin was so white, and I said, he's Ethiopian with skin problem, probably. It's weird. And when the time come, we got to Khartoum, capital of Sudan, to the airport. I was very active at the airplane. I got a lot of toys for the first time. I was communicating with the, how do you say dialog?
Flight attendants.
Flight attendants. And my father asked me if I can ask her for 2 beers for him and his friend. And then I got to the cockpit area and asked her beers. And then she gave me, I got back to my father, and then my father was so proud that I can speak English. But when we arrived in Europe, I mean, thousands of white people. I mean, thousands of strange people. I was sure that this is not Israel, because in Israel I was expecting to see a lot of dark-skinned Jews only. And then we arrived in Ben Gurion Airport. I saw the Israeli flag, the Magen David, which we were very familiar in our synagogues in Ethiopia. The synagogues in our villages, they had Magen David on top, like the churches did. We were sometimes imitating some symbols from our neighbors. So we used to put Magen David on top, so we knew Magen David is Jewish thing. So when we saw the Magen David here at the airport, we said, it's so Jewish going on here. But we didn't understand what the European people are doing here. When we saw that just in Europe, what's going on. We go to the Merkaz Klita Absorption Center. Then you see more Ethiopian, and then slowly you understand hey, you are not the only one who immigrated into Israel. There are Russian, there are Indian Jews, there are America, Ukraine, and from everywhere. This is the moment that at the absorption center, personally, I realized that I'm not the only one who is immigrating to Israel. There are millions of Jews who are moved to Israel.
Wow. Okay. So firstly, an amazing story, and I'm fully aware that the experience of Ethiopian Jews making Aliyah is, there are various stories. There's people that walked all the way across the dam. And obviously, some years later in the 90s, you have Operation Solomon with a huge airlift of some 16,000 Ethiopian Jews. So you get to Israel, and how old are you at this point?
9 years old.
9 years old, with your parents and siblings, brothers and sisters.
Yes, my sister, my youngest sister, at that time, she was born during the journey, and we called her Yerushalayim. And the other 3 brothers, they were born here in Israel. They don't know about Ethiopia. Anyone who asked them, how was in Ethiopia? I said, the answer, I don't know, go to my parents. But they are very, very Israeli with the chutzpah and with communication problem also, where is the respect to the parents, like in Ethiopia. In Israel is a little bit different. And my parents adjusted to the new reality in Israel, and they started also to use the chutzpah. Shekel bevakasha.
As a father of 3 young Israeli children, I agree with the chutzpah comment. So you're right. You're at the absorption center, and your parents. I mean, none of you speak Hebrew at this point, right? So, can you tell us something about the whole process of integrating into Israeli life? And I'm thinking of 2 different processes, really. Your parents' process and yours, which is probably very different because you're going through school. You can become Israeli in a way maybe that your parents can't, or that's more difficult for them. Can you tell something about that?
Sure. Well, at the period of time of Menachem Begin, I can say, which is the early 80s, the first group who arrived to Israel are the big group, the Moses separation. We came here to be Israelis. I mean, we didn't want anything related to diaspora and any, we as children, we were ashamed to see our parents speaking the Ethiopian language. We were not happy when they're coming to elementary school because they don't know the language. We really wanted to be very, very Israeli, and our parents still their body is here in Israel, but their mind, the way of thinking, and the mentality still was in Ethiopia. They still hear Ethiopian music. They dance like in Ethiopia. Everything like in Ethiopia. They have a coffee together with the Ethiopian people, and we want to integrate immediately. And that's create a lot of tension between parents and children. And there was some social crisis because of that. And kids that they are not aware about it immediately, and they can have some problems at school. And then if they have problem at school, they need to send them to boarding school and see if they can adjust the new reality. And it wasn't really easy for the children and for the parents. Our parents, they went to Ulpan. For them, it was very, very fun. Anytime they learn a new word in Hebrew, if that word remind them something in Amharic or Tigrinya, they start to laugh. If it has double meaning, especially. Do you have that kind of experience? Like you learn some word and it has another meaning in your language. So they were, sometimes it's not for kids. You know, so, and they never use it because it's not too much romantic or something for in the Ethiopian culture. In our Aliyah, in our period of time, we were in mindset of becoming Israeli. The letters of Aliyah, I don't know what happened. I think I know what happened. At that time, the Israeli policy was also to make Olim Israelis. They used to change the names. Sometimes they gave the same name in the same family, like Abraham, and the other one who came after him to Israel, they called him also Abraham. Sometimes they confused with the family name. There was many things, but the policy was to integrate and to make us Israelis. We didn't resist it. But in 1991, when the Russian immigrants came here, the Israeli policy was multiculturalism. And if you want to maintain your culture, your name, you want to have your own channel TV in your language, no problem. So what happened is, with Solomon Operation, the Aliyah of Solomon Operation, how do you say? It was a wake-up call. Hey, don't forget where you're from. You have to be proud in your language. You have to be proud in your culture. And you can see the tension even today. Even though Solomon Operation Pope, it was in 1991, which most of them are becoming more and more Israelis. Okay. And the Falashmura Olim, the last 10 years who are coming to Israel, they are more Ethiopian actually, much more in terms of mentality. And I guess they won't survive like Ethiopians here. It's not easy. It just will take more time to become Israeli. But I understand the trick, the Israeli trick, the trick of the Israeli institutions policy, that multiculturalism is like soft absorption, in my view. I hope you agree with me, which is good. Take your time, relax. We will meet you at the next generation, okay, with your kids. Oh, you want to argue that you are Jew and you don't want to make some conversion? It's okay. Enjoy your stay in Israel. We will meet you at the chuppah. Don't worry. It happens many times. So slowly, which is sometimes it's difficult for someone is raising up as a Jew and he believes on Judaism, and then all of a sudden, when someone want to get married, oh wait, you have to go through conversion. That happened many times. I heard it also with Russian immigrants. So we have this kind of challenges.
Okay, I am going to go to the audience for questions shortly, and you can ask specific questions. Also, I do want to just say your comment about the children laughing at the double meanings. So it reminds me of when I was living in London and working in the Israeli embassy in London. A senior Israeli diplomat, told the story of how outside her house she was screaming at her children who were driving her crazy, die, die, die! And the neighbours were looking at her absolutely appalled on the street in London. So the double meaning is in English as well. Okay, so I'm going to finish with this and then I'll turn to some specific questions. Israel today and the Ethiopian today, you've spoken about how there's some differences in the different sort of waves of Ethiopian Aliyah, from the 80s Aliyah to the 90s, and now the Falash Mora, who's sort of more Ethiopian, and there's also with them, and you can speak to this if you want, the additional complication that many people don't see them as Jews, right? The Falash Mora, these are Ethiopians who had been converted to Christianity, but saw themselves as Jews from generations back, right? So the current situation for Ethiopians in Israel, we all, we can read the news and we can read stories about, either we can read some very optimistic stories about how the next generation of Ethiopian Jews are becoming much more integrated and becoming much more part of Israeli life, or you can also read, stories of how Ethiopian Jews are doing worse proportionally than other parts of the population, and there's racism in certain sections of society and that kind of thing. How would you, as an Ethiopian Jew, who's not just as an Ethiopian Jew, but as someone who's dealt with these issues, who's thought about these issues, who's fought with these issues, how would you describe to us the state of play for Ethiopian Jews?
And the integration.
And the integration, indeed.
Well, it's a very good question, Paul. At the end of the day, we are here. You are here to be part of us. It's better to say. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, we are one people, the Jewish people, and the integration is like Leida. It's like birth, and it's not easy. And there are accidents in this. I don't think something is happening intentionally. I think it's a process. You hear a lot of times news about racism, or especially police brutality, which I was very dominant in this 4 or 5 times demonstration in Tel Aviv, and actually I was speaking many times in the media, and I was very clear most of the time. For instance, the police authority, it's our police. We like it. It's important for us. And we want any individual police who is making mistakes by accident, by mistake, whatsoever, to get a punishment if he's brutal for any civilians who is following the law. The other thing is that when you want to develop your career, you move on and on and on, and you get to some point that part of it is about politics, but sometimes it's about prejudice. That some of them, they don't believe that Ethiopian Jew can be a general director of a big governmental office. He can be a coordinator, secretary, project manager. It's okay. The same thing at the army and security areas. Even though today there is some awareness because of the demonstration, because the main message in our demonstration against the police brutality was, please, leave us. We are here forever. We are Israelis. Don't come as anthropologists. Okay? Talk to us in Hebrew. It's okay. Okay? We have first degree and second degree. Okay? I'm a lawyer. I can sue you. Okay? It's most of the when I'm talking sometimes, when someone is hearing me speaking in Hebrew, I say, hey, your Hebrew is so beautiful. You speak very good. And then sometimes you feel like, I don't know how to answer to those people. Well, you didn't go to university. I went to Northwestern University in Chicago. Sometimes you see, do you understand the complicity? I mean, you don't know how to answer. So most of the time I'm just smiling. Thank you very much. I'm a teacher for Hebrew or something like that. There are those kind of challenges, but I have to say the truth also, that I believe that the Israeli system is not racist system. That's my belief. There is no racist policy against any Jew or anyone in Israel. But I can say there are racist people. Okay? This is very important to distinguish between. And I can tell you more than that, there are Ethiopian racist people. We all have small baby of racism. If you admit it, you start to heal yourself. If you ignore it, אתה חי בסרט, you know, like if you ignore it, it means that you are not aware about yourself. But if you say, oh, I can tell you that I'm very open to say that the education that I got is it's a very religious education in Israel. I went to yeshiva, and later on to boarding school, high school, also religious. And I believe in Eretz Israel and all the Jews to come here and to build Bet Mikdash and etc. But also, I didn't know what the Arabs are doing here. I never heard about them. I just left Israel for short short period of time, for 2,500 years. So why are taking my place? That was my mindset. But I didn't like them. Okay.
You're a racist.
Yeah, yeah. I'm saying I'm former racist. But I met them at the university, some Arab people, and they were so nice. They want to become, some of them Israelis. They speak Hebrew. Some of them, they went to the military service. And I said, wait, not all of them are mechablim. What's wrong with me?
Terrorists.
Not all of them are terrorists. There are good people and bad people. You learn to distinguish and to understand that at the end of the day, humans are about individuals. That's the way I handled my small racism in my soul. And today, I don't hate anyone. I don't hate anyone except to the people who wants to destroy Israel, to hurt the Jewish people, people who wants us to go from here. You know, I did this journey not to go away again. I'm here until Bet Mikdash, we'll see the Bet Mikdash, and we'll see all the Jews in Israel. Did I answer to your question?
Right.
So there are challenges. To tell you the truth, will be challenges all the time. But there are also some success. You can see on TV because of the demonstration. We say that we need presence on the media. One of the ways to combat racism is not to say stop racism. You need to implement something. And cultural presence, face presence, but not to tell stories of it's hard for me, I don't have food, not this kind of things. I'm officer at the IDF and we did this and we did this. I'm a doctor for this and that. Your face, your presence is the solution of racism. And that's happened. We see more and more Ethiopians in some areas that they are integrated, like in Channel 2 on the news, Channel 1 now I see, and others. And myself also. I'm in different circle of social areas. Not always I'm talking about Ethiopian Jews. Sometimes I'm talking about American Jews, especially people who are in New Jersey in beautiful house. Dr. Morgan. Yeah, Lakasha.
Thank you very much. And also, of course, there have been in the last, I would say, several years now. There's been Ethiopian members of Knesset, Ethiopian minister, the outgoing minister of immigration of Aliyah, is Ethiopian woman, Polina Tamanashata. And those are very positive developments as well. And hopefully we'll also see, as you said, in the IDF, it'd be wonderful to see a Ramatkal, the Ethiopian Chief of Staff of the IDF. Okay, let me open it up to questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat a short version. Well, I hope your question is short in the first place, let me just say that. But I'll repeat a short version of your question for the benefit of our Zoom audience who won't necessarily be able to hear. The lady in the purple jumper had a hand first, yes.
You said that you originated from Tigray,
Yes.
which is an extremely violent area now.
Yes.
Okay, are there any Ethiopian Jews, any Jews still left in the country and in that region?
So the question was whether there are still Ethiopian Jews left in the region of the country where Elias is from, in Tigray.
Yes, well, there are in Tigray, which is northern of Ethiopia, there are humanitarian crises there, and they are under siege for more than 2 years. They are attacked by neighboring country, Eritrean army, and by own government, which used to protect by its citizens. They are under starvation as a tool of war, and Biden, the president of the United States and the European Union, they always have declarations all the time. We worry about it, please stop it, but no, we don't see any action, and thousands of people are dying there. Yes, there are about 5,000 Jews. I can say 5,000 who are related, that they have family in Israel, and the reason that they are not here is because the Aliyah activists used to talk about, in general, about Ethiopian Jews, but they moved most of the time only for another federation, because the white people, they think they're all Ethiopians and all the same, but actually Ethiopia is like former Soviet Union. It's federation and federation and federation. And if I come to a minister and telling him I want to bring Jews from Ethiopia, and not telling him where in Ethiopia, I can decide from where to bring. And it was a mistake of the first Aliyah, okay, from Tigray, because they are integrated to the Israeli society, and they didn't think that they have some Jews that they are waiting for Aliyah. And I hope that the new government will take some diplomatic action to save them. I hope so. Did I answer the question?
I'm going to take another question from here, and then I think we have a question from the Zoom that we're also going to go to. So who had a question? Lady in the yellow here.
I'm not sure I understand what you said. Why is the Aliyah process different for Ethiopian Jews than it is for the American Jews? We didn't have to go through a federation. We just went to the Aliyah office and came an Aliyah. Why is it different for the Ethiopians?
The question was in what way is it different for Ethiopian Jews?
Not only in what way, but why?
Why is it different for Ethiopian Jews than it is for, say, American Jews to make up?
I don't know. I mean, Israel claims that most of the real Jews already arrived in Israel, and we need to close the door. Okay? And my answer to Israel all the time is, if you close the door of Ethiopia, then you can close the door of Russia and America. Why do you need a door? Just, you can say individuals can go to embassy or to Sochnut Yehudit and by individuals, okay? They can go and ask if they have rights to make Aliyah. But it's not really happening, and if that happens, it's a big process that is not worth it, because in Ethiopia is a poor country. If you want to go to Addis Ababa, it takes like a day or 2 days or 3 days sometimes, and you need money for that, and you cannot stay for a long time in Addis Ababa. So any decision you make, it has economic expenses. Okay, so most of them, they prefer to stay at the village and to wait for Mashiach to take them from that place, and that's what has happened for the Jews in Tigray. They remain at the same village for various of reasons. Some of them, they decided when Menachem Begin said, "Bring my brothers and sisters," we stand up and moved on. Some of them, they couldn't come because her father is sick and she doesn't want to leave him. And this time, she met someone else, he got married, and she has a baby, and the time is running, and she didn't come. that can happen, right? You don't need
Well, my
to.
question is not about the Ethiopian Jews.
Why
My
is
question
that
about-
different?
About the state of Israel.
Yeah.
And their relationship to the Jews who are there, which is
Yeah,
so
but it's a-
different to Russian Jews.
Yeah, yes. It's a combination of racism, ignorance, and also difficulty of recognizing the Judaism. It's a combination of all of them. In one hand, the Israeli institutions are very lazy about it. They don't encourage Aliyah. No, they don't have office of to encourage Aliyah from Ethiopia like there is in America. Nefesh b'nefesh, birthright, like in Russia, okay? If there is no encouragement from Ethiopia, then it is racism. But if they will say, yes, we want to bring from Ethiopia, and then you have to know who, because in Ethiopia, everyone can say, I'm a Jewish. So you have to investigate. It's much more process. So it's a combination, but I don't think you have to close any door. Any door. If you want to close the door, let's go. Close all the doors. Did I answer your question?
Yes and no. Because I can.
So let's do it up. You can approach them up, so I want to move on. But thank you very much for the question. It's also worth pointing out that the whole question of the status of Ethiopian Jews as Jews was not something that was initially agreed on. It was seen as a controversial issue at one point. I mean, the Rav Ovadia Yosef in the 1970s said they were Jews, but I think he had to convince his Ashkenazi counterpart Shlomo Goren initially that was the case, and finally there was the decision that they were Jews and you were let in. But I think there is still a holdover of that reluctance on the part of some people, unfortunately. Okay, I'm just gonna go to Lily for a Zoom question.
We have many questions on Zoom.
So you'll have to choose just one for now.
But I'm going to start with just one, which is a little bit of a yes or no question. So
Okay.
if the answer is no, then we can move on to a different question.
Okay.
Which is, do you have any memories of celebrating Pesach in Ethiopia?
Do you have any
Yes.
memories of celebrating Pesach in
What are they?
Ethiopia? What are those memories?
My memory of celebrating Pesach, it was when we escaped from Ethiopia, from the regime of Mengistu Haile Mariam. We were in the middle of our journey to Sudan to cross the border. It was a Pesach. We stopped there for 7 days, and my mom did matzah. And my father is a musician. He used to play music. And it wasn't table like we are doing it in Israel, El Seder, very organized with map and a chair for Eliyahu Navi. But I absolutely remember Pesach, and we celebrated Pesach, and not only Pesach, we celebrated Sukkot, Yom Kippur. We didn't celebrate Purim. We knew there is a problem with Mordechai Yehudi and Esther HaMalka, but we didn't hear that they solved the problem. So we just fast, and that's it. No party. And we didn't celebrate Hanukkah. It's from the Talmud.
Right.
It's not something we, as you remember, we left Israel. At the first temple destruction, and therefore some of the traditions we didn't practice it. But you guys made mistake, or you forgot something. We celebrated Sigd. While the Jews in America were sleeping, we keep maintaining the Sigd, which is from Ezra and Nehemiah. It's a public Yom Kippur. You go to the big mountain, pray to God, renew the alliance with God, and ask for public forgiveness. While Yom Kippur is a private forgiveness. I ask Paul, I'm sorry what I did to you during this year, and please reset my mistake. And the public, you ask, go to the mountain, you pray, you fast, and at the end of the day, you have a big seudah, big dinner, and actually you can celebrate even of renewing the breed with God, like it was in Mount Har Sinai. How do you say Mount Har Sinai? Mount Sinai, like he said. Did I answer your question there?
I believe so.
Okay, guys, are you there in the Zoom? Good question.
Okay, yes.
Okay, it's more of a general question, but you mentioned about Tigray, and what's so upsetting is that people were starving, thousands, literally thousands. We don't know how many died, and in the world media, it like didn't really feature. They did have the peace talks in Cape Town in South Africa, but it was more capitulation, where they just didn't want more to starve, so they signed a peace type of process. But why wasn't such an outrage about what was happening in Tigray here in Israel or worldwide? Because people died, and we don't even know how many people died, thousands and thousands.
Okay, so this is a question about the humanitarian crisis in Tigray and why there was not more world Israeli
or even awareness.
Awareness of it.
Almost 1 million people died in Ethiopia, including soldiers from some areas, but most of them are civilians. I thought the South African government will take some determined leadership when they mediate the peace process between the government of Ethiopia and the regional area Tigray, and hiding the involvement of the brutal military, the Eritrean military, okay, hiding it. He's still there and killing and raping, and I can't even describe it. But people are not focused on Ethiopia and to solve the problem, because it's Africa. It's the only thing that want the Western country, Europe and the United States, is to keep them united as one country, because it can avoid refugee to Europe. That's my view. And this is the reality. And the black people in Africa, they have to wake up one day, because not always Western are guilty of what is happening in Africa. I think we have to say it clearly. I think the leaders of Africa also are the main problem of those people. I see it today. I mean, there are countries who wants to give some humanitarian aid, and they resist sometimes, because starvation is a tool of war today. And when they receive it, they want to sell it to make money, to buy more guns. So I'm not buying the narrative of Africa is very poor because of the Western country. Not anymore, not today, like I said, because I see it very clear today. But if you have influence, please ask Zuma. Still Zuma there?
No, it's Ramaphosa.
Ramaphosa?
Yeah.
Okay, where are you from in South Africa?
I live here, but Joburg.
Joburg, yeah, I was there for 2 years in South Africa.
Okay, thank you. The lady there.
On a totally different note,
Sure.
I'm very curious if there's a study done to show how many of the Ethiopian Olim are Shomer Mitzvot, how many came Shomer Mitzvot and then went all away from that, being in an Israeli environment, etc. And of the young people, what is in store religiously for the young Ethiopian Olim?
Okay, it's a question of religious observance of Ethiopian Olim. How many were Shomer Mitzvot when they arrived? How many are still religiously observant? And also especially about the young people, what's the religious future?
Very good question. At the moment that Ethiopian Jews arrived in Israel, we didn't know the word secular. We don't know what is that. Actually, being a Jew in Ethiopia, there are some rules. You have to respect Shabbat, no fire, no this, and etc. Yom Kippur, and all the Jewish holiday you have to respect. If you don't respect, you are not Jewish, or we call you assimilated, or we will call you Falashmora. Falashmora is either someone who chooses to convert himself to Christianity, or he just left the Judaism and just easily assimilated to other groups. So in Israel, we are not familiar, at the first years at least, with the word secular. And even today, any Ethiopians who immigrated to Israel in Moses operation, Solomon operation, without kippah, is still traditional. He's still respecting somehow the Jewish issue. Because the question is, if you are Jewish, what are you doing to be a Jew? If you behave like someone else, like other religions, so you are not Jewish. So this logic is very, very central issue in our community. What is happening in 2022, what you can see more and more integration to the mainstream area, not necessarily maintaining the tradition, the Jewish tradition. In Tel Aviv you can go, you can see them driving in Shabbat, maybe some of them not respecting Yom Kippur, because the feeling is that if you are at the Holy Land, this is a big synagogue, you feel safe. So you can ignore many things. To tell you the truth, when I'm going overseas, the first thing I want to know is where is the synagogue. Not in Israel, I don't ask in Israel, but overseas, Israel ask where is the synagogue, and then I know there is a Jewish community, and then I'm okay. Whatever is happening, I don't know how to explain it psychologically, but it's always you want to feel you are belong to something. But I agree with you that there is integration also in the religious area also. So today you can find in Likud, you can find in Tzionut Datit, and different kinds of parties, and also you can find in the settlements area, which is very, very strong, very right wing, and you can find also in the center area. So you can find various of things, especially the Ethiopians who immigrated in the 80s, and the second and the third generation. Today there is a third generation, I have to say. Yeah, absolutely. So don't ask them how was in Ethiopia. They don't know.
Okay, yes, madam.
Did I answer?
I personally do not have any Ethiopian friends. And I imagine the younger generation is well integrated with Israelis. But how can the older generation connect and make some friends? Is there any group where this happens? And secondly, do the elders, the Ethiopians of my generation, do they also feel any desire to make friends with people like us? Or are they happy with their community? Because in Israel, many of the communities remain very insulated, including our American community. So how can I make friends with some Ethiopians?
With the elderly people? With the elderly people?
Elderly. What's this? Elderly. No, I'd be happy with any age. But I know the younger ones are not interested.
It's a very,
okay.
It's a very nice question. It's a very nice question asking about how she can meet with how she can make friends with Ethiopians of her own age or of other ages, but essentially how can she make connections with Ethiopians rather than just staying within her own American bubble.
It's a very good question. Elderly people among the Ethiopian Jews today, they are lucky that the kids were educated to respect their parents. and they are lucky that they are staying in touch with their parents, even they have some career. Well, I heard many stories that kids here in Israel, because they have business, they are so busy that they don't have time to visit their parents. Sometimes I'm hearing it. But in the Ethiopian families, they are aware about it. They are very. I'm going every second weekend to my parents as a schedule. I mean, I know they miss me. They don't tell me, we miss you, we want you, but I know that they want me next to them because they feel they are 75, 76 years old, and I know they want us next to them. So we made some rules. We are aware about it. Can you make with them friends? The first question is question of language. The second is cultural and mentality. You can meet and you can smile and it can be nice. I'm not sure you can be a long-term friendship. And that because I say it with my parents. My sister got married, her husband is from Russia. He immigrated from Russia, and his parents are in America. And twice or three times they are coming to Israel, and they always visiting my parents. And my mom talking to my sister's husband, mom, by pictures, oh, you good. That's it. The seder, yofi. That's it. They communicate by pantomima. Okay, they're happy to see each other. They feel the love and so on. But it's not easy. But you can have very good relations, and you can become very good friends with Ethiopians who raised up in Israel, and they are becoming 70 years old, 75. They have some experience, like me. Okay, when I will be 70 or 70 years old, it's going to be easy for me to communicate with other immigrants or group or community, because I raised up in parallel to them. Does it make sense, my answer? Yes? So it's a gap of mentality, culture, language, and environment. But still, you can be friends with Ethiopians if there is good communication. I see today sometimes Ethiopian women, they have Russian friends. They used to work together. Most of them, they are cleaning at school, at university, so they communicate, they teach each other Hebrew, so they become friends. They talk, they go to wedding, they go together, visiting each other. I see it sometimes. But it is a question of communication and the way that you raised up in terms of your environment. That's what I think. Am I clear?
He's had his hand up from the very beginning.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so.
What percentage of the third generation Ethiopians are now accepted to universities?
Wow. What percentage of third generation Ethiopians are accepted to universities?
Well, I don't have the exact percentage. I can tell you a few years ago was every year they accepted to universities and colleges about 3,000 every year. A few years ago, I guess today it's more, maybe 5,000, maybe, and the number is increasing all the time. There is some awareness of education, of getting high education, and Ethiopians who cannot or they are not getting accepted to university, then they are going to get some diploma, some course in high-tech area. There is a organization called Tech Career. They study computer programming for 1 year, and then they integrate to the business market. But we see the number is increasing, There is no obstacles if you want to go to university or to college, not even financial obstacle there is not, because Israel is covering the full payment of this, with some limitation that until 30 years old or so, something like that. But the number is increasing, and we are happy about it. We wish we could have more and quickly more students.
Can we get another Zoom question, Lily?
Yeah, sure. Another good Zoom question was, can you tell us about your experience in the Israeli school system?
Oh, your experience in the Israeli school system.
The first time I went to school, it was obviously when I arrived in Israel in 1983 in Ofakim, Abir Yaakov Elementary School. My experience was fighting. I was very violent during the break between the classes, and that because they called me Kushi, Shachor, and go to Ethiopia, and all this, and I thought that I can solve it by violence, but at the end of the day I found myself getting punishment also from the school and from my parents. My parents came to school and the teacher told him I'm not a good student, and my parents told the staff of the school that they should hit me, like it was in Ethiopia. Because in Ethiopia, the schools have full authority of the children. There is no letters, sending letters, please come and see what's going on. No, you get punishment immediately. So, and then you think, why I'm so angry if someone is telling me Shachor, black, and I found out that I got hurt. I'm African. I have to be proud that I'm black, right? Why should I be aggressive? It's a question. And the answer is that in Ethiopia, the society doesn't look themselves for 100% that they are black people. I think this Ethiopian society, they think they are the white people of Africa. And it was in my mind, because they see the Sudanese, they see the Nigerian, they say, I'm white. And then I got to the elementary school, someone is telling me you are black. Hey, see the Sudanese? What's wrong with you? I'm brown. By the way, the Yemeni immigrants are very happy when we arrive. Finally, there are white people. But we are happy also with the refugees from Sudan. We feel a bit better. We say, hey, black people. But my experience, except to this point, which very educated me, and I became more sarcastic because of it. I was laughing. Any incident of racism or ignorance, I'm taking it to another place, and I'm making to the person very small by being sarcastic or some joke, and I think it's the best way to deal with that. But the rest of it at the yeshiva was okay. I wasn't happy. I was a good student, but I wasn't happy, and then I escaped from the yeshiva and I moved to Kippas Ruga yeshiva. It's a religious school, and then I was a very good student at Amit Kfar Batya Bera'anana. I was very competitive student, and I really love to study. I'm collecting degrees all the time. I think experience is also the way that you see the reality, and I'm happy that I had a problem at the first year of my Aliyah.
Wow.
Okay. I hope I answered your question, Mr. Zoom.
Okay, do we have a final question from the audience here?
I'd like to ask a
Okay, we have a final question. Yes, madam.
Yes, I'd like to know if your personal experience is a rule or an exception in the Ethiopian community, this fight against racism. They all are like you, fighting to overcome racism, or they felt crushed by this? How the community in general react to this racism?
Okay, that's a great question. The question is whether Elias is representative of the community at large in fighting against racism and taking this strong stand, or whether other Ethiopians are also like that, or whether they're actually more passive and not so involved in the fight.
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure. I mean, you can find various of people and various of personality. It's about of your experience and the way that you raised up. But I'm sure there are people who are taking it in my way. My point is that when racism is not my problem, not at all. When I see any this kind of racism, so I'm putting it on the table and I'm starting to manage it, not taking it to my soul at all, not at all, not. And that's the way you can handle it and even find a solution for that and give some ideas. That's why sometimes I say, when I meet audience and say, hey, welcome racist, how are you? Good to see you again. So even they are not racist, just for fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, my community, Ethiopian community, are getting matured from time to time. And also, the most important thing is that we must understand, and we understand, that we are not leading a community, or we are not thinking to lead a community. We thinking about the people of Israel, and we can lead the people of Israel. I'm advisor, communication advisor today. I didn't tell you. For some parliament member. Yeah, I'm coming from there. And we are talking about it. I mean, whether we need to talk about only Ethiopian Jews, or let's talk about the people of Israel, the economy, the periphery area, the security, the public security, and personal security, and what's going on the streets. Those issues are including the Ethiopian Jews. We are not coming to Israel to build Ethiopia. We are coming to Israel to build Israel.
He needs an applause, no?
I thought that.
Okay, I think that's a very nice positive note to end on, and to thank our guest very, very much, Elias Inbram. Thank you so much for joining us. Another round of applause. Enlightening us about a topic which we really should know more about, and I think it's to our sort of embarrassment that we don't know more about it. And I appreciate you coming and teaching us. And I think this is one of these. I think everyone in this room is not originally from Israel, and maybe there are some exceptions, but certainly the vast majority of us are from other places originally, and speaking for myself, when I lived in the UK, you think about Israel very much from the perspective of the conflict, and how do we deal with all the anti-Israel stuff and all these things, which are very important, and I think we should still think about those things, of course. But living in Israel now and being part of Israel, we really do have to also think about Israeli society, what's going on here in Israel, how do we deal with the challenges that people here face, and I think the Ethiopian situation is one that is something we should all be more aware of. So thank you so much, Elias. Can people see? sort of, keep up with, follow your career somehow? Are you on social media? Can we find you on the media various places?
I have email.
Okay, so we can...
inbram@gmail.com.
Okay, Inbram, INBRAM, strudel@gmail.com, or you can email me and I'll send it to you there.
Sure.
Elias, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope to see you soon. Yeah.
And I would like also to thank you for listening. You are amazing. And remember, you are Israelis. Thank you very much.